It's time to reject modern society and return to the outside. I was gonna record this at the beach, but there's been a total shutdown of my country, and I'd rather not be in public. I've just isolated myself. I've gone to the woods. Lorde has always been one of my favorite artists, but I haven't properly gotten to talk about her on this channel, because last time she released music, I was 15 years old. When Lorde last released music, I was auditioning for my school's play of Beauty and the Beast. I ended up playing a haunted suit of armor that threw Belle in jail, so you can say I stole the show. A native bird just flew by me. Maybe recording outside was a mistake. I think nature hates me. A few years later, Lorde has released her next album since Melodrama, and I've paid the security deposit on a new place. I'm in my second year of my business degree. I've had 2 long-term relationships start, fade, and break up. And in that time, I got to know Melodrama pretty well. Lorde kind of made me feel like I had a chance to understand my emotions before I had even experienced them. So just in short, I've gotten a lot out of Pure Heroine and Melodrama. So when it comes to this new album, Solar Power, I'm just gonna take what I can get from it. And, you know, you might hate this album. You might think this album's terrible, but not everything's about you. Some things are about me. So Lorde, real name Ella something, is a 24-year-old singer from Devonport in Auckland. She broke out with her massive hit Royals in 2013, which is her at age 16 doing a surgical takedown of the music landscape. Actually not Hayden, real name Hayden something, is a 20-something who grew up pretty fucking close to Devonport in Auckland. Like, when Lorde talks about, like, how nobody envies her postcode on Royals, she's talking about my postcode, and I take it as an insult. I did not live in Devonport, though. My main experience with Devonport is I got trapped there for 6 hours. I went to go see Rocky Horror Picture Show, and after it, I missed every bus, so I sat by the library for 6 hours and waited for the sun to come up. I could have used some solar power back then, honestly. Also worth noting that the, like, poor person aesthetic of Pure Heroine kinda does not hit as much if you actually live there. The median house price in Devonport crossed $2.2 million this year. So, you know, anyone growing up there, you know, if you're saying we didn't come from money, I just kind of have to assume you're fucking lying. Like, sure, the city's not on a screen, but, you know, we were pretty well off. For most people who listen to Lorde, New Zealand is quite literally a foreign country, so this idea that it's like this abandoned ruin that the renegades and the outlaws, like, stay at, it's a little easier to sell, when in reality it's Devonport. That being said, there is something to be said about not being seen on screen, is that when you grow up in New Zealand, your idea of a celebrity is very American. You watch American TV with American actors, you listen to American singers, and you, learn American history in your schools. So that feeling of being, like, trapped in a small town where nobody really becomes anything, while maybe not, like, literally true, it definitely, like, strikes an emotional truth, is that, you know, everyone's really far away from each other. You have to drive for about 20 minutes to see your friends sometimes. It's not centralized at all. You kind of very quickly feel like you've met everyone and you know everyone and you don't like some of them and you've kind of outgrown the city. So while it is a pretty privileged area to grow up in, it does kind of capture that sort of bored, nihilistic, working class emotion. Because there's, like, a real sense of overwhelming anxiety that comes with looking at your town and realizing that there's nothing for you there anymore. And that strikes true in lots of country music, lots of emo music. It's kind of no surprise that Americans really latched on to Pure Heroine. Like, I mainly associate Pure Heroine with, like, walking to school at, like, 7:30 in the morning when I was, like, 14. It kind of just felt like an anthem for my shitty year 9 life, where I'd go and talk to my shitty friends who didn't like me about shitty things I don't even remember, and then just going home and hopping on Twitter to talk about the Billboard charts. Did my childhood suck? Kind of sucked. But yeah, like, in the age of social media, that America-centric idea of fame is kind of pushed on these young teenagers that have actually no shot out of there. And like, Pure Heroine serving as a kind of surgical takedown of that really resonated with me specifically, and probably a lot of other people. And I think, like, after that, people assumed that Lorde would, like, go in more indie directions, but she did the opposite, and she strayed right towards pop music. Is that with Melodrama, she was that celebrity, she was that young adult, she was that person that you see on the TV making a lot of money. She's like the ultimate hometown hero for this whole country. She's like the one celebrity. Like, we have Taika Waititi now, but like, I think Lorde's still the biggest name in the last decade out of this entire nation of people. Melodrama exists in a hurricane of interpersonal conflict and just all these conflicting emotions, all just hitting at you blisteringly fast, and it's one of my favorite albums ever. I love it deeply. If you're living the fast life in New York, in California, you're hanging out with Taylor Swift, you're breaking up with your boyfriend while you cross 8 million followers on Instagram, like the same style of music that you use to describe your 16-year-old life in Auckland, it's just not going to be the same. That's a lot more similar to the narrative of Pure Heroine than it is to Melodrama. This is the Lorde that strayed away from the pop trends and not towards them, and I think that surprised a lot of people. Like, the initial reception to this album has been pretty lukewarm. I think a lot of people kind of didn't really fully grasp what was going on. You see her just standing on the beach and smiling like, hey, hi, I'm Lorde, I'm back. This is not about how to be 18 and sad. Like, it progressed from We'll Never Be Royals to, like, I was a royal, it actually really wasn't that good, and now I'm not anymore. I'm gonna go back to the cities you never see on screen. And you are still unlikely to see these cities on screen, because Amazon moved Lord of the Rings out of Wellington and into the UK. Thanks, Jeff Bezos. Whether straying away or towards pop trends is, like, the best idea, I think that's kind of a moot point. I think Lorde can basically do whatever she wants. She's proven herself to me that whatever she releases, I'm just at least gonna think about it a lot before I give my opinion. And I've listened to this album like quite a few times now since it's come out. I've listened to it outside, I've listened to it inside, I've listened to it at day, I've listened to it at night, I've listened to it while out for a walk. I've listened to this album while creeping under your floorboards, waiting for you to go to sleep. So I think I kind of have digested it and sat with it and kind of worked out some of my complicated feelings towards this album, because it's not all positive, but there is like a lot to like, and I think I would recommend it, and I'm going to get into it why, and I'm just going to take you through the album and then talk about some of the more like, part of me had a lot of questions seeing her, like, happy and dancing on the beach in the music videos. Like, how are you chilling in the sun? Do you not know what happened this year? Holy shit, have you processed the pandemic already? Who's your therapist? Can I have their number? Did not going on Twitter for 4 years really help you that much? Shit, I should delete my social media. Basically, are you going to tell us that everything is okay, and how the fuck can you justify saying that? And believe it or not, the painting that The Path paints for us actually gives a lot of clarity on that. She's running around the whole world, chasing Summer wherever it is, ignoring everyone. Her label, her fans, just the internet in general. And why is she running around? Why is she dodging everyone? Why is she chasing Summer all over the globe? It's because she can't tolerate the alternative. She has this line about teen millionaires having nightmares from the camera flash, and I kind of wonder, is that she's experienced being a 16-year-old pop star that got a fuckload of critical acclaim, and I wonder if she sees herself in the Olivia Rodrigos and the Billie Eilishes of the world, and seeing them, like, be treated the exact way she was treated in just this never-ending cycle that just cranks through these women until there's, like, until they're psychologically broken. Like, hell, just listen to the most recent Billie Eilish album for direct examples of this. Happier Than Ever is awesome, by the way. I should make a video about that. And, like, at the peak of the song, she's talking about how if you're looking for someone to guide you through your life and tell you everything's okay and tell you, like, what to do, that isn't her. That is not her intention. It's kind of like a direct response to me entering a new stage in my life and thinking, a new Lorde album to guide me through this would be pretty cool. She doesn't want to be the voice of a generation anymore. She's been an angsty teen voice of the kids for 8 years now, and it's just not her. She just hopes that summer will be better than now, and that will hit different depending on where you are. If you're in the United States, I'm pretty sure this album came out right at the end of summer, so you've got a whole year to wait. But for me, it's winter right now. I know, you can tell. And summer is about 3 months away, in November and December. And maybe that'll be nice. Maybe I'll go to the beach. Who knows? I think the lead single Solar Power is really good, and I'm tired of pretending it isn't. It pulls off the vibe this album was going for. It's tense, it's kind of unsure, but it's ultimately just happy to be here. You're still alive, you're still kicking. You're in New Zealand. Maybe you're not in New Zealand, but I am. I just love her voice and her talking about throwing her phone into the ocean. Because if you didn't know, Lorde has been pretty dead off social media for the last few years. She moved from country to country depending on where the summer was, just between California and Auckland. I actually met her during this time in 2019 summer. I met Lorde briefly after a Kylie Rae Jepsen concert. So she was just in the mosh with us. So after walked up to her and I was like, "Oh, hi, I like your music. Hello, you're Lorde." And she said, "Thanks, I like your hair." And I'm pretty sure that exchange between me and her probably improved her mental health enough to make this album. I think the serotonin was directly given by me. If I saw Kylie Rae Jepsen and famous YouTuber Actually Not Hayden in the same day, I think that would instantly cure any mental illnesses. Please subscribe. From there we get Lorde's decision to get the fuck out of California. Which, seems to be a pretty good decision based on most accounts of California. California talks about Lorde receiving a Grammy from Carole King and thinking that will be the peak of her life, and finding out over the next few years that she was right. That was the peak of her life. That was the time she was the biggest. That was the time she was given the most attention. All that. So she has to rearrange her values if she's going to move on. There's Stoned at the Nail Salon, which is Lorde in New Zealand wondering if this was a good idea, and I'm glad that it exists on the album. It's kind of she's not selling going to New Zealand as being a cure-all. She is a little bit unsure. She has these musings about how all those fake plastic IG models are gonna get old and die too, so you don't have to be a pretty girl on the internet. But she is also kind of unsure of that, being maybe that's true, or maybe I am just weeded out of my mind right now. My favorite lyric in Stone at the Nail Salon is "We went dancing near the landmines under our town," both because it's a nice little metaphor and also because it's nearly literally true. Devonport had a lot of mines in the sea. There's a beach there called Torpedo Bay. So if she was literally talking about the actual mines that are there, that would be fucking cool. My least favorite lyric on the song is "All the music you loved at 16 you'll grow out of," because that's not true at all. Black Beatles in the city, be back immediately to confiscate the money. I just spilled this non-alcoholic drink all over my laptop. Ruh-roh, give me a second. Shit. I fucking hope I didn't fuck this. Jesus. The moment of quiet from Stone at the Nail Salon is continued in the song Secrets from a Girl Who's Seen It All, which reflects on her pop stardom, but it also reflects on her dog Pearl that sadly passed away. The songs that talk about the dog death on the album, they really hurt, because a dog death is just an unambiguously sad event. It just adds to the grief. It makes me do the Florence Pugh face. The song Big Star is about the dog. Talking about how Pearl would run up to strangers and be like, "Hello, do you want to be my friend?" And it's just so sad. There's nothing like a dead dog. Quote from Actually Not Hayden. Fucking. There is a couple more political tracks on here. They aren't deeply political. Lorde has never really been directly political. She thinks that's the type of thing that she should butt out of. She didn't want to be this is the climate change album, because let's be honest, it's kind of not the strongest thing to go off of. But it does add to the overall exhaustion that would cause one to leave California, just making the heart full of grief and exhaustion just slightly heavier. Just the type of things that would make the decision to move forward into the sun a difficult decision with stakes. And it's one of the things I really like about the album. So this makes the tracks Fallen Fruit and Leader of a New Regime kind of political vignettes, just quick snapshots of our world today a little bit. The image is conjured up of a pop star packing dresses and magazines and fleeing to an island now that climate change is happening and there's been major political upheaval. And part of me wonders how much of that is like a kind of self-deprecating self-parody, because, I don't know, if you're Lorde living in the USA, if you're living in the USA in 2020 and kind of just fuck off to New Zealand, I'm not saying she's doing the pop star princess packs up and runs away, but she's not doing that. She isn't really as self-critical in this album as she was in Melodrama, which, I don't know, maybe is a shame, because I think the, like, self-awareness is one of the strongest aspects of Lorde's writing, but I think it's also kind of inherent to this album, since a lot of the changes in Lorde's life were external rather than internal. It wasn't like interpersonal relationships, it was a change in scenery, a change in mood. It's good, I'm glad she's doing it, I'm glad she's getting better, but it does kind of end up being a bit one note sometimes when she's just reflecting on her past. It doesn't really have the textured detail of songs like The Louvre or Supercut or, hell, Ribs. This album is definitely more in the vein of Pure Heroine. I'd even compare two of the tracks on this album to Royals, and those songs are Mood Ring and Dominoes. They both serve as critiques of, like, kind of millennial culture. But, Royals is distinctly from the outside and Solar Power is distinctly from the inside. Lorde has lived among the millennials. She has eaten the avocado toast. She has, seen the housing crisis. She knows. Dominoes is a short little song about this guy who's just a real stinker. He's just a real piece of shit. He's just a terrible guy. He's kind of rebranding himself as like a new male, he's doing yoga, he's drinking smoothies, but, kind of doesn't really change the fact that he's an abusive piece of shit that refuses to get better, and everyone knows it. Everyone sees through the whole ruse. There's nobody who doesn't think this guy's a piece of shit. And yeah, I've definitely known people like that where it's just like an open secret that they're a piece of shit, but they still post like, oh, going on the treadmill today. Fuck you. How dare you be skinnier than me? Am I a toxic person? Yeah. And then there's also Mood Ring, which, in addition to being a fucking banger, holy shit, the vocal melodies on the song, oh, they're good. They're so fucking good. That, Asian people are like these mysterious other that have magic powers that will, cure your depression or whatever. It kind of ends up messing with how white people perceive Asian people. And it's, like, not specific to that demographic, and there's a lot of other ways, but it is just a very, like, deliberate thing to point out. I just made myself some coffee. I'm sorry for the continuity error. It can feel kind of mean at times targeting people whose main goal is self-improvement. But I can understand that she's tired of a certain upper-class millennial white American that she's probably met too many of by now. This might even be a parody of the album itself. Like, haha, isn't it so stupid that Lorde thinks deleting her social media and going and getting sunburnt in New Zealand will solve her problems? She needs to do something else. But, I don't know, that's kind of like two layers of irony, and, I think once I'm this deep in the album, I'd kind of forgive someone else for not going as far with it as I have. If someone listened to this album and thought it was just Lorde chilling out and thinking a bit, I'd really just forgive that, because, I don't know, she hasn't really done a lot to imply that there's more going on. She kind of just trusts that you'll go for it yourself. And I did that, but I don't know if I can expect people to really give this album 3 or 4 listens, especially since it does kind of not really stray that much from its one stride that it hits for about 40 minutes. The album closes out with Oceanic Feeling, which I also think is one of the strongest tracks on the whole thing. Like, it opens and closes with really good tracks, so I ended up having a really good experience with the album. Oceanic Feeling slaps. There's references to Lake Taupo, Marlon Williams is on it. There's references to, like, cicadas. The song's a love letter to New Zealand. There's also the lyric, the cherry black lipsticks gathering dust in the drawer. I don't need her anymore, kind of retiring her 16-year-old edgelord self. And, yeah, and that kind of struck a chord with me as someone who connected to Pure Heroine and, someone who kind of looks back and kind of cringes on who I was when I was 16. I hope I'm this cool with my own former self when I'm 24. I don't know, the idea of the cherry black lipstick gathering dust, it's a really potent image. It's kind of like, wiping off your goth makeup and going in for your shift at Subway at 8 a.m. Like, it makes sense, you're embracing your adulthood, And it's a little tragic, but, you know, it's overall fine. And that's basically the run-through of this album. Most of its content is about his lyrics. It's a very acoustic and vocal-focused album. There's not that much variance in the production. It's a lot more stripped back to just let it do its thing. Like, there's the occasional quirk, like the cicadas on Oceanic Feeling, making the song sound like the North Shore, because they don't shut the fuck up. And there's other quirks, like Dominoes has... Two birds are fucking each other. Dominoes sounds like it has police sirens in the background. Has she said why there was sirens in the background? So according to Lorde, she recorded this in a room at Electric Lady with the doors wide open, and you can hear the outside coming in while she sings it. You can hear a lot of sirens because there were a ton of protests that summer. I like that it sounds how that summer sounded, so that's Lorde talking about it. So let's get into the kind of complicated, ugly bit about this album that's just not praise at all, really. I think maybe leaving the doors open and letting the sounds of a Black Lives Matter protest be part of this album, be included in the recording of this album, is a really, really bad move. Like, maybe it shouldn't bother me as much as it does. Like, feel free to correct me on this, but it kind of makes Lorde look pretty bad. Like, if you think of this album in terms of, you know, her being this rich, white celebrity that can leave the USA and go to New Zealand, it doesn't juxtapose well with the Black Lives Matter protests, where people who are not in that situation have to fight for their lives. They might be executed by the government. A lot of the premise of this album is that Lorde deleted her social media and went to New Zealand and just chilled out, you know, worried about climate change, but overall happier. And, like, deleting social media is not a viable thing that most people can actually afford to do, especially in a pandemic, especially, you know, with these protests happening. You need to know where people are. You need to, you know, connect with people. You need to organize, like, all these things. For most people, this isn't at all possible, and it kind of just forces this disconnect, because my sympathies, like, you know, who I really, like, feel for. I feel more for the Black Lives Matter protest than I do for the millionaire. Like, for most people in the USA, you can't just go to New Zealand if you're sick of it. Our borders are basically shut, and, you know, it's even a struggle for some people who are citizens of this country to get in. It can take weeks or even months. It's not a viable option to survive in 2020, to survive in 2021, unless you're Joseph Gordon-Levitt, or you're Gabe Newell, or you're Lorde. I don't know, her survival throughout these last couple years, it's directly not accessible to you or me. You know, like, Lorde has weird feelings about 2014, and I sympathize with that, but if I'm thinking about people, real people in the current day and age getting brutalized by the people that say they are there to protect them, I can't really think about Lorde that much. I can't let that occupy much space in my brain. I view Lorde as Lorde and not me. I think more of the ways that me and her differ than the ways that me and her are the same. Like, if you're making art about your problems and you're taking yourself seriously, I think it's a bad move to include the best argument for why nobody should care. Like, Lorde, you're gonna be fine. I'm worried that racism is going to kill more people in the immediate future, and I know it will. To just include this in your art, like, without any comment, like it's just your little garnish for your little song about how you hate hipster millennial men, I think it borders on gross. Like, I'm sorry, Lorde, we had the same childhood, except you had more money. Then you became extremely famous when you were barely old enough to have a driver's license, becoming the most well-known and most well-liked name out of the entire country in the last decade. I'm sure it was super fucking hard for you. I'm sure it sucks for you that climate change will happen. You're definitely not probably among the last people to be killed by it. Climate change is going to attack Pacific nations first. It's going to be like indigenous people that suffer the brunt of that, and I don't know, your feelings about it. I'm sure it's really fucking hard. Like maybe you will experience a single problem a few decades down the line. I'm sure that's really tough to grapple with. Like, you had a dog die, I had people die. I can't put myself in a position where I really give a fuck once I'm thinking about that. Like, I'm sure it's hard and it's relatable to be unsure of your place in the world, but at the end of the day, I have bills. There's a disease in this country that could kill my parents. I can't run away to New Zealand. I'm already here. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little unfair to it, but I just got reminded for a second that, you know, I don't actually really care about Lorde's struggles. I kind of would just projecting my own struggles onto her art and reaping out of it what I could from that. And I don't know if I can do that for solar power. And it works really well. And then I hear the sirens again and it's just gone. It's just gone. Every time I listen to the album, I just am taken out of it, and I feel just the deep, like, political sorrow that I've been experiencing for the last year, just watching everything fall apart. And it's not that Lorde is trying to make me feel bad for her. I think the opposite is true. I don't think she wants me to feel bad for her at all. It's just that when you include something with the heavy, deep significance of the Black Lives Matter protests, I kind of don't really want to hear about, like, Topo anymore. I like, everything she's talking about just feels so small, so inconsequential. The impact of it all is so much less once you're reminded of the real world and how things really are. I don't know, while I'm on it, I have a kind of, you know, like, less Lorde's fault, but a still complicated feeling towards this album. I don't really have any idea what I'm gonna do with my life anymore after this. I kind of felt trapped growing up in the North Shore with this America-centric idea of success. Like, it felt like nobody who grew up there ever really became anything by that standard. I don't know anyone who, you know, left New Zealand and became really successful. I don't know anyone who, you know, everyone knows the name of. There's no hometown heroes, except Lorde. Lorde's the only one. By the time I was 18, I felt like I was suffocating in Auckland, and I moved to Wellington pretty much just to avoid some people and meet some new ones, and it hasn't happened yet, but I do fear that that same suffocating feeling will happen for Wellington, and then maybe the whole country, because this city's even smaller, it's more tightly packed, it's like its own little community, and if I grow tired of this, well, where do I go? Like, it was kind of a pipe dream, but it was like one of the things I'd talk to my friends about, is that we'd kind of dream of, like, one day going to the United States and maybe being something. The United States is one of the only countries in the world where there's enough people that you can be an artist. It's like a viable career path for some people, is that enough people can hear about you in your country that you can pursue that. And it's becoming more accessible, especially with things being online, but I don't know, America is just the place to be for that. It's where, you know, there's live shows for stuff, anything. I didn't have, like, a concrete plan laid out, but I did know that at some point I kind of wanted to get out of here and, you know, maybe do something that a lot of people see. Lorde's the only one that did do that did go to the USA, that did, like, you know, get a lot of people knowing who they are. That's the only one I know about. It's the only one that's, like, occupied, like, a significant amount of space in my mind for as long as she has. This, like, 1 in a million thing that this really talented person would make it to the USA and just be overall unimpressed with it, and over the course of about 8 years double back on New Zealand, as New Zealand's just the place that she feels happier. I don't know, that was just kind of upsetting in a way that I don't think was intended at all. Like, just this message that I should be happy with the hand that I'm dealt and maybe not go pursue more, maybe just, you know, finish my business degree, become an accountant or something. Hey, you know that thing you always wanted to do? Don't do it. It sucks. I tried. It's terrible. Don't even bother. Like, I don't know, I've had a bad couple months and it just kind of felt like kicking a man while he's down. I'll probably get over it, but fuck. In conclusion, tonal switch, we're gonna be happy again, don't think about anything bad. This song could have been on the album. I feel like this album's probably gonna be dismissed similar to how the 21 Pilots album was this year, like in that these artists have the financial stability to be able to grow and change as people, but if you're a working person that's basically just trying to stay afloat in this doomed world, you might not have had much time to mature in the last 2 years. Like, I have moved house, I have ended my longest relationship ever. Like, I have a new job, I switched my degree, we are in a full-blown pandemic right now, we are in the lockdownest lockdown you can be in. It's just kind of a lot. It's that kind of quiet torture of doing a dramatic overhaul and reshuffling how you see yourself and how you project that relationship onto other people. You know, like sitting outside alone. Like, Lorde has been getting out of California, looking back on her past relationships and taking a moment in the sun. And I'm kind of doing the same with this video. It's been nice to breathe some fresh air for a little bit. I'm awake during a daylight hour, which is rare. I think, I don't know, it's just a complicated whirlwind of emotions that, you know, coincided with this album coming out at this specific time. And I'll definitely have to think about it again, maybe in a year or so, and see how I feel about it then. You know, maybe I will have mellowed out and I won't feel as strongly negatively as I do. Like, for now, I find the album a little bit hard to listen to, but if you should listen to the album. I think you should listen to it and get out of it what you can get out of it, because there is a lot of stuff there. It's a very well written album, and it's real. Flaws and all. I like it more than Pure Heroine, but not as much as Melodrama. I think Melodrama is one of those, like, rare perfect albums that an artist gets to make once in their career, and they just never, like, reach that height again. Like, it just, you know, it just contains everything that anyone could like about that artist. You know, like Norman fucking Rockwell or Acid Rap. You know, one of those albums, just those perfect projects. This album isn't bad. I do feel like it kind of underachieves and does have some, like, real misfires, but you can trust that anything she releases will be thoughtful and engaging and moving, no matter what it is. I can't wait to be, like, married with children when her next album comes out in 2029 or whatever. I probably will have gone through something worse by then. And until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me in this little adventure outside. Yeah, I will try to make more videos in future. I have so much planned. So be sure to subscribe so that you see it in 8 months whenever I finish it. You know, whenever I have whenever the country goes back into lockdown again and my mental health plummets enough to decide to put myself on the internet again. But until then, bye. Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon.